So a few weeks ago now, the time is marching on quickly, but a few weeks ago now, we got together down the hall to discuss what our Lenten theme would be, and we all had these just terrible ideas. So we went home empty-handed, and Don and Alan promised that they would work on it, and I think some emails went back and forth with Chuck Christensen at Trinity Lutheran, and they hatched a plan. They decided that we would spend our Lenten season facing the cross. And there was some resource, some materials were available, and they decided that we would just take up a different theme each week, and they assigned themes, and I was very happy with the idea. I think facing the cross is a worthy topic for Lent especially. But they assigned to me the specific topic of facing our worldliness, which is hard to say. Facing our worldliness, which I think is kind of funny that they chose this for me, because I'm sure Don knows that my undergraduate major and the thing I talk about all the time in Bible study is geography. I love geography. If I can sneak geography into a sermon or into a Bible study or brushing my teeth, it's good. I love geography. So my job is to talk about, I guess, the evils of geography? I'm not really sure. Facing our worldliness. I have to confess, I like the world. I think the world is a good place. In fact, as Christians, one of our fundamental beliefs, and it doesn't matter whether you're a biblical literalist, it doesn't matter if you take a modern approach to Scripture, a postmodern, one of our fundamental creeds and beliefs is that God created this world. And not only did God create this world, but upon doing so, God looked at it and declared that it is good. God is the original geographer. It's good. You all have had that experience of waking up early in the morning in the summer, of getting in your car and driving through the cornfields when the tassels are golden and the sun is rising over the fields and the sunrise and the tassels and the whole sky is golden. And you stop the car and you roll down the windows and you hear the birds singing, you can smell the soil. Or you're on your bike and you just smell the earth. And in those moments when you just know in your heart, in your soul, in your mind that this is God's good creation. Those moments in the spring when the snow melts away and the first brave little flowers poke their heads up, when the robins begin to nest. Have you ever noticed that none of these examples have to do with winter? If you can find God while scraping the frost off your windshield of your car, you are a better person than I am. I've yet to find God there. Spring is coming, summer is coming, and God is good. So perhaps recognizing our worldliness is just to recognize that this world is God's good creation, and that we are a part of it. I mean, according to the second chapter of Genesis, God took earth, Adamah, soil, and gathered it in his hands and formed it and molded it and breathed spirit into it and formed Adam. That we are formed from the very earth itself, that we are part of God's good creation. How often we forget that. But when we die, and they bring the casket forward and they turn it and it rests here, in this sanctuary, or Union Presbyterian Church, or any church, and there's a body there amongst us as we bid farewell to someone we've loved in our life, we know that they are dust returning to dust, that they are earth returning to earth. We are reminded of this in our Ash Wednesday services, that we are mortal. But even in our mortality, we are part of God's good creation. We live in a culture which would like to deny that we both die and that we're part of creation. But these are two central, important parts of our Christian faith. A part of facing our worldliness, I think, is facing the fact, and I'm going to speak personally here. I don't want to speak in your behalf, but I'm going to confess and say that I like stuff. I love stuff. I love my iPad, my iPod, my smartphone, my iMac. I love my Nissan Altima with a CVT transmission. It's the coolest thing around. I love my Paradigm speakers at home, built in Canada. They're fantastic. The 12-inch subwoofer is amazing. It sounds so good. I love it. I love HD TV. If you want to watch the Tour de France as God meant to be watched, get HGTV and watch. It is fantastic. I love it. I'm not ashamed to say it. I love my house. I love my neighborhood. My prized possession in this cold winter months is my electric heated blanket. I mean, some people get in the airplane and they fly to Hawaii. I just get under my blanket and I turn it to preheat. It's golden. I love it. I'm not going to tell you I don't. Don't we like our stuff? My house is a big empty basement. Many of you may have been in my house because Elaine Kirby, the previous owner, had an estate sale, and many people walked through my house at her estate sale. So you may have seen my basement. It's big. And my plan in my life is to buy as much stuff as possible and fill that big basement up. And then my son, who's now 4 years old, in 60 years, it'll be his job when I retire to clean that thing out. My advice to you is never throw anything away. You might need it again. We like stuff. And I'm not going to make a big sermon about whether or not stuff gets in your relationship with God. That's for you to decide. It can be a problem. But that's not my main point. Facing our worldliness, I think, also is facing a world that at times just doesn't make any sense. I saw on the news a few weeks ago, I wrote my sermon a few weeks ago, so all the illusions are a little old now. But a few weeks ago, I saw on the news that a CEO of Bank of America got a rather significant raise. Did anybody else see this news story? Now, I want to tell you personally that at Union Presbyterian Church, the session got together and they proposed that I would get a 2% raise this year. And I have to say, I am perfectly happy with that raise. I feel cared for by my congregation. I know that they value my time, that the money allows me to do the work that I feel called to do. I feel loved by my church and feel that they take responsibility for my well-being. I'm perfectly happy with a 2% raise. And I'm sure you likewise take care of your staff here. So I read that there's a CEO of this banking sector, which, if you've been following the news the past few years, hasn't been going very well. The banks have been under a lot of stress. They've made a lot of bad decisions. They're in a lot of trouble. This is a sector that's been bailed out by the government a few times and has been re-regulated. There's been a lot of discussion. And I saw that the CEO got a raise of, does anybody want to guess what percentage raise he got? 5%? 2% increase. 72% increase in compensation 1 year over the next. 72%. That's a lot of stuff. hope he has a really big basement. Sometimes when we encounter news like that, I know I do this. I just shrug my shoulders. I know I can't control it. I can't stop it. I'm powerless. And what I say to myself and what people say is, it is what it is. It is what it is. You see, that's the kind of worldliness that bothers me the most. A kind of worldliness that accepts the craziness of the world as what it is. It is what it is. 20 to 25,000 children starve every day due to poverty the world over. It is what it is. It's a worldview that has given up, that has quit, that can't see the beauty and the potential of life anymore, that is resigned. It is a world weariness, a faithlessness that bugs me the most. I can't stand that phrase, it is what it is. Sometimes at church, and I know, I understand completely that being a parent of an active, healthy child these days is a lot of work. We want our children to be involved in different things. I mean, psychologists say it's a good thing. We want them to be in music and in sports and involved in school. We want them to be involved in church. We want them to have friends and to go out and do things. And to be a parent of one kid or several kids is a lot of juggling. I understand that we can't get to church every single Sunday. I understand that. But sometimes parents have told me, Andy, Sunday isn't Sunday anymore. Huh? Sunday isn't Sunday anymore. It's just not how it used to be. Did we just give up? Did we just quit? Do we just decide that we're going to give up on Sundays now? That we're throwing in the towel? That we've given over the sense of Sabbath keeping and the sanctity of our congregational life? We've just handed that over to someone else's schedule? Did somebody else decide what Sunday is? It is what it is. It's just not Sunday. It's another day of the week. It's a world weariness, a giving up, a faithlessness. It bugs me. See those sunrises in the morning, or hear those birds chirping, or see those beautiful snowballs. I think about how this world, this creation, belongs to God. And as much as we would like to forget that or ignore it or shove it to the side, in a deep and profound way, this world, our lives, belong to God. And God isn't done yet. God has formed us as a church. God has called us together as a community to proclaim the gospel, to proclaim the good news, to be God's people in the world, to let people know that it doesn't have to be the way it is. That we don't have to live in the world where children starve. We don't have to be in the world where some get 72% raises. We don't have to be in the world where we run our kids into the ground so they're successful. God is sovereign over God's good creation. If we remember that and keep the world in perspective, we can actually allow it to be a healthier, more fulfilled world. That the world becomes itself in its own glory when we keep the gospel front and center in our lives. So it's not the world I'm worried about. I worry that we'll quit being the church. That we'll hand things over and walk away from a task that God has called us to do.